This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining something that sits at the heart of why so many modern relationships fail. Something so fundamental to male happiness that removing it is like removing oxygen from the air, yet something that many women systematically destroy without understanding what they're doing or why it matters so much. We're talking about peace, male peace. The quiet, the stillness, the absence of unnecessary conflict and drama that allows a man to think clearly, to regulate himself, to process his day, to simply exist without constant stimulation or emotional management. Men don't need much to be fundamentally content. This is observable reality that anyone who's paid attention to men understands. A man with meaningful work, a sense of purpose, basic respect, and consistent peace can be deeply satisfied with a life that might look sparse or insufficient to outside observers. But remove the peace, fill his environment with constant noise, constant demands, constant emotional weather that he has to navigate, and you remove the foundation of everything else. Here's what makes this particularly tragic. Most women don't destroy male peace maliciously. They're not trying to make their men miserable. They often genuinely want to be good partners. But they cannot give men what men need most because they cannot tolerate what men need most. They cannot give peace because they cannot be at peace themselves. And rather than sit with that discomfort, rather than do the internal work required to achieve genuine calm, they export their internal chaos into the relationship and destroy the very thing their men need to stay bonded to them. This is not a small problem affecting a few relationships. This is a pattern I see playing out in the majority of modern marriages and long-term partnerships. And it's destroying them from the inside while both partners remain confused about what's actually going wrong. Stay with me. This goes deeper than most people realize. The fundamental difference, how men and women relate to silence. Let me start with a thought experiment that will make this pattern immediately visible. Picture a man sitting in silence for 1 hour. Just sitting. No phone, no TV, no book, no conversation. Just him, alone with his thoughts, in a quiet room for 60 minutes. You can picture that, right? You've probably seen it. Maybe you've done it yourself if you're a man. It's not unusual. It's not pathological. It's just a man being comfortable in his own presence. Processing, thinking, regulating, existing peacefully in stillness. Now picture a woman doing the same thing. A woman sitting in complete silence, alone, with nothing to distract her from her own thoughts for 1 hour straight. You can't picture it, can you? Or if you can picture it, you're picturing a woman who is deeply uncomfortable, agitated, anxious, reaching for her phone every few minutes, getting up to do something, anything to break the silence. This is not stereotype, this is observable pattern, and understanding why this pattern exists is the key to understanding why women destroy male peace even when they don't want to. Men embrace solitude and silence as opportunities. Opportunities to think clearly without external noise. Opportunities to process emotions internally without needing to express them externally. Opportunities to reset, to regulate, to return to baseline calm. For most men, regular periods of silence and solitude are not luxuries. They're requirements for psychological health. Women experience solitude and silence as threats. Being alone with their thoughts, sitting in stillness without distraction, creates discomfort that many women find genuinely unbearable. The internal monologue gets loud, the emotions get intense, the anxiety builds. And the instinct is not to sit with that discomfort and work through it. The instinct is to escape it by any means necessary. And the primary means of escape is creating external stimulation, conversation, activity, plans, drama, conflict. Anything that redirects attention outward rather than inward. Anything that fills the silence with noise. Anything that creates enough external chaos that internal chaos becomes background noise. This is where male peace dies. Because the woman who cannot tolerate her own internal silence will systematically destroy external silence in her environment. And the man who needs that external silence to maintain his internal calm discovers that his home, the one place that should be a refuge from the chaos of the world, has become the primary source of that chaos. Why women can't sit with their own thoughts. This requires us to examine something uncomfortable about the female internal experience. Because the question is, why can't many women tolerate being alone with their thoughts? What is happening internally that makes silence so threatening? The female mind tends toward rumination in ways that the male mind does not. Rumination is the process of cycling repeatedly through the same thoughts, the same worries, the same emotional patterns without resolution. Women's internal monologue, particularly when there's no external stimulus to focus on, often becomes dominated by rumination. She thinks about conversations she had earlier and reanalyzes them for hidden meanings. She worries about future events that may never happen. She replays conflicts, real and imagined. She questions her decisions, her relationships, her adequacy. She creates elaborate scenarios in her mind about what could go wrong. The internal experience becomes a continuous loop of anxiety-producing thoughts that build on themselves rather than resolving. Men's internal monologue tends toward problem-solving rather than rumination. When a man sits in silence, his thoughts often move toward, here's what I need to do tomorrow. Here's how I'll solve that problem at work. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. The thoughts are directed, they're productive, they lead somewhere, and even when they're not actively productive, they're not usually anxiety spiraling, they're just thoughts passing through, not demanding constant attention or creating emotional urgency. This difference in internal experience creates a fundamental incompatibility in how men and women relate to silence. The man experiences silence as calming. The woman experiences it as activating. The man seeks silence to regulate down. The woman avoids silence because it regulates her up. And here's where the destruction of male peace begins. The woman who cannot tolerate silence will not allow silence to exist in her environment. If she can't be calm internally, she will ensure that nothing around her is calm externally, because the contrast is unbearable. Because sitting in external peace while experiencing internal chaos makes the chaos feel more intense, not less. How women destroy peace. The mechanisms. Let me be specific about how this pattern actually plays out in relationships, because understanding the mechanisms is essential to recognizing the pattern when you see it. Mechanism 1. Creating problems where none exist. The man comes home after work. He's tired. The day was stressful. He needs some time to decompress, to shift gears from work mode to home mode, to let his nervous system settle. He's not angry, he's not upset, he's just tired, and he needs quiet for 30 minutes. She cannot tolerate this. His silence creates space. Space creates the opportunity for her internal rumination to activate. Rather than sit with her own thoughts for 30 minutes while he decompresses, she fills the space. She asks him what's wrong. He says nothing's wrong, he's just tired. She doesn't believe him, because if she were silent like that, something would definitely be wrong. So she keeps pushing. Are you mad at me? Did something happen? Why are you being so quiet? He explains again. Nothing's wrong, he just needs some quiet time. But she's already activated. Her mind is now generating scenarios about why he's really upset. Is he losing interest in her? Is he angry about something she did? Is he regretting the relationship? The rumination has begun. And rather than manage that rumination internally, rather than recognize that her anxiety is her own and doesn't need to be externalized, she externalizes it. She creates a conflict where none existed, because having an actual conflict to focus on is more tolerable than sitting with the anxiety of imagined conflicts. By the time this interaction is over, the quiet he needed has been replaced by a 30-minute argument about whether something is wrong, about whether he communicates enough, about whether she's just supposed to sit there while he ignores her. The peace is gone, and he's more exhausted than when he started. Mechanism 2. Manufacturing drama through social engagement. Many women cannot sit in an evening without plans. The idea of a Friday night with no scheduled activity, no social engagement, just being home together in quiet companionship, this creates anxiety, so she fills the calendar, dinner with friends, events to attend, activities to do, constant motion, constant stimulation, because motion and stimulation prevent the discomfort of stillness. For the man who works hard all week and looks forward to the peace of a quiet weekend at home, this is exhausting. He's not being asked to relax. He's being asked to perform socially, to be on, to manage interactions and navigate social dynamics when what he needs is to be. When he expresses that he'd rather stay home, she takes it personally. She interprets his desire for peace as rejection of her, as lack of interest in doing things together, as him being boring or antisocial. Because for her, staying home means being alone with her thoughts, and that's intolerable. The compromise is usually that they do the social activity. She gets the external stimulation she needs. He loses the peace he needs. And the pattern repeats every week, with his peace perpetually sacrificed to her inability to be still. Mechanism 3. Creating emotional weather that requires constant management. Some women, and this is particularly destructive, create ongoing emotional volatility that prevents peace from ever fully establishing itself in the relationship. She's upset about something. He doesn't know what. She won't say directly. He has to figure it out. Or she says what it is, but the stated reason doesn't match the intensity of the emotion, so he knows there's something else underneath that he's supposed to divine. He becomes responsible for managing her emotional state, for figuring out what's wrong and fixing it, for navigating around her moods, for being constantly attuned to her emotional weather so he can adjust his behavior accordingly. This is the opposite of peace. This is constant vigilance, constant emotional labor, constant navigation of unpredictable terrain, and it's exhausting in ways that make a stressful job feel restful by comparison. The man in this situation is never at peace in his own home. He's always waiting for the next emotional storm, always managing, always adjusting, always walking on eggshells. The home that should be a refuge has become the primary battlefield. Mechanism 4. Filling silence with noise. Some women simply cannot tolerate actual silence. If there's no conversation happening, they start one. If there's no music or TV providing background noise, they turn something on. If the environment is quiet, They fill it with their voice, with media, with activity, with anything that prevents actual stillness from settling. For a man who needs periods of genuine quiet to think clearly and regulate properly, this is like being slowly suffocated. The noise is constant. The stimulation is constant. There is never actual silence, never actual peace, just varying degrees of noise and activity with no break. When he asks for quiet, it lasts maybe 10 minutes before she needs to say something, needs to turn something on, needs to break the silence because it's creating discomfort for her that she cannot manage internally. His need for peace is in direct conflict with her inability to tolerate it. And in most relationships, her inability wins because her discomfort is louder, more immediate, more demanding than his need. Why this pattern destroys relationships? Here's what this dynamic does over time to the man experiencing it. He stops coming home with any energy. Work becomes less draining than home because at least at work, the demands on him are clear and finite. At home, the demands are unclear and infinite. He starts staying later at the office not because he loves his work, but because it's more peaceful than his home. He stops sharing his internal world with her, because every time he tries to have a moment of quiet reflection, she interprets it as a problem that needs to be fixed. So he learns to keep his internal experience entirely to himself and to never let her see when he needs time to process. He becomes emotionally distant, not because he wants to be, but because her inability to tolerate his silence has made silence impossible. He loses attraction to her. This is the part that many women don't understand. A woman who cannot create peace is a woman a man cannot rest with. And a man cannot stay attracted long-term to a woman he cannot rest with. The constant drama, the constant demands for attention, the constant emotional management, these things erode attraction at the foundational level. He starts fantasizing about being alone, not because he doesn't love her, but because being alone would be peaceful in ways that being with her is not. He starts looking forward to business trips, to nights when she's out with friends, to any circumstance that gives him a few hours of the peace he cannot access when she's present. Eventually, he leaves, either literally through divorce or figuratively by emotionally checking out while remaining physically present. Because a man cannot sustain indefinitely in an environment that denies him the fundamental thing he needs to be happy. The peace he requires is not negotiable. And if he cannot get it at home, he will either find it elsewhere or he will collapse under the weight of never having it. What women hear versus what men are actually saying. When a man says, "I just need some quiet," here's what many women hear: "You're bothering me. I don't want to be around you. You're annoying. I'm pulling away from you. Something is wrong and I'm hiding it from you. You're not important enough for me to engage with right now." Here's what he's actually saying: "I need to regulate my nervous system. I need to process the day. I need to shift from external focus to internal calm. I need 20 minutes of genuine silence so my brain can reset and I can be fully present with you after that. This is not about you. This is about me needing to take care of my psychological baseline so I can be the partner you need me to be." The woman who hears the first interpretation will create conflict to address the imagined rejection. The woman who hears the second interpretation will give him the space he needs, understanding that supporting his need for peace is supporting the relationship. The woman who can give a man peace is rare, and the man who finds her recognizes immediately what he has, because he's experienced what it's like to be with women who can't. He's experienced the constant low-level chaos, the inability to ever fully relax in his own home, the exhaustion of perpetual emotional management. And when he finds a woman who can sit comfortably in silence, who doesn't need constant stimulation or attention, who creates calm rather than disrupting it, who understands that his need for quiet is not rejection but regulation, he holds on to her. Because she is providing something that most men desperately want and rarely receive. What would actually help if you're a woman reading this and recognizing yourself in these patterns? Here's what would actually help. Learn to sit with your own discomfort. Practice being alone with your thoughts without immediately reaching for your phone or creating activity or seeking external stimulation. Or start with 10 minutes. Build up to longer periods. Learn that the discomfort of your internal rumination is not an emergency that requires immediate external action. It's just discomfort. You can tolerate it, and tolerating it is how you develop the capacity to create peace for others. Recognize that his silence is not about you. When he's quiet, it's not because he's mad at you or losing interest or hiding something. It's because he's an adult human being who needs periods of internal processing that don't require external expression. Give him that space without making it about you. Your anxiety about his silence is your problem to manage, not his problem to fix by talking more. Stop creating problems to avoid boredom. If you find yourself picking fights when there's nothing to do, if you find yourself creating drama when things are too calm, if you find yourself manufacturing conflict to break up the monotony, recognize that you are sacrificing your relationship to your inability to tolerate peace. Find healthier ways to manage your need for stimulation that don't involve destroying your partner's peace. Develop the capacity to be still. Meditate. Sit in nature. Practice yoga. Do anything that trains you to be comfortable in stillness and silence. This is not just about helping your relationship. This is about your own mental health. The woman who cannot be at peace internally will never be at peace externally. And that internal chaos will poison everything around her if she doesn't address it. To understand that creating peace for your man is one of the highest value things you can offer. In a world that is chaotic, demanding, stressful, and exhausting for men, a woman who creates peace in her home is a woman a man will fight to keep. She is rare, she is valuable, and she's providing something that men need as fundamentally as they need food and water. For men, what this means for you: if you're a man experiencing this dynamic, here's what you need to know. Your need for peace is legitimate. It's not selfish. It's not antisocial. It's not evidence that you don't love her. It's a fundamental psychological requirement that allows you to function optimally. Don't apologize for it. Don't minimize it. And don't sacrifice it indefinitely to keep the peace, because that sacrifice will eventually destroy your attraction to her and your capacity to stay in the relationship. Screen for this before committing. Before you marry a woman, spend extended time with her in quiet, low-stimulation environments. Can she be comfortable in silence? Can she sit still without needing to fill every moment with activity or conversation? Can she tolerate you having internal experiences that you don't immediately share with her? If she can't do these things while dating, she absolutely cannot do them in marriage. And marriage to a woman who cannot create peace is a slow-motion psychological torture. Set boundaries around your peace. You're allowed to say, I need an hour when I get home before we engage. I need Saturday morning to be quiet time. I need us to have at least a few nights a week with no plans. And if she cannot respect those boundaries, if she treats them as rejection or as you being difficult, that tells you something important about whether this relationship can give you what you need long term. Don't stay in relationships that deny you peace. There is no amount of other good qualities that compensates for the absence of peace. A beautiful woman who creates chaos is not worth it. A successful woman who fills your environment with drama is not worth it. A fun woman who cannot ever be still is not worth it. Peace is foundational. Without it, everything else eventually collapses. Final thoughts: men don't need much to be happy, but what they do need, they need absolutely. And peace is at the top of that list. The woman who understands this, who can create peace rather than destroy it, who can be still rather than constantly agitated, who can tolerate silence rather than filling it with noise and drama, that woman is worth more than gold. Because she is giving her man the thing he needs most. And the man who receives that gift recognizes what he has. The woman who cannot do this, who exports her internal chaos into the relationship, who cannot tolerate stillness, who creates drama to avoid sitting with her own thoughts, that woman will drive away even good men who love her. Because no man can sustain long-term in an environment that systematically denies him the fundamental requirement for his happiness. This is not about women being inferior or broken. This is about a genuine incompatibility in how men and women relate to silence and stillness, and about recognizing that this incompatibility has profound consequences for relationship stability and male happiness. Women who can develop the capacity to be at peace themselves and therefore to create peace for their partners will find that they can keep good men in ways that other women cannot. And men who understand that their need for peace is legitimate and non-negotiable will make better choices about who they commit to and what they're willing to tolerate. Peace is not optional, it's essential. And relationships that understand that survive. Relationships that don't. Drop a comment with your experience. Men, do you relate to this need for peace? Women, can you create it, or do you recognize yourself in the patterns of destroying it? Subscribe, because this channel will continue examining the fundamental incompatibilities that destroy modern relationships, not to assign blame, but to create understanding. Stay healthy, stay peaceful, and protect your peace like your life.